Hi, everybody. I have somebody so special here today that I cannot wait to talk to. And her name is Nicole Eikenberry.
I
Did I
can bear
pronounce it right?
I can vary.
Okay, Eikenberry. Okay. Well, Nicole, welcome, welcome, welcome. I just can't wait to talk to you. I mean, there are so many things that you're a registered dietitian. And on your website, it said you give women or anybody a better relationship with food and their bodies.
Yeah,
Now,
well,
that statement right there is just pretty amazing. So, can you explain that?
yes. Well, and let me say, I am not giving that to people. People are finding their way there. We work together because I believe that people are really experts of themselves and know themselves well. And so we're looking to do some healing work around issues with food and discomfort or body hatred, and with food and eating. I mean, I
Oh,
think there's so much there, and so to be able to find a little bit of peace and ease and even pleasure with food and eating, it's just a big relief for a lot of people who are struggling.
I know it is just such an issue. And if we, the older we get, I think, and of course, I'm 81, so I finally made peace, I think, with food and my weight. But oh my gosh, somebody asked me the other day, they said, "What's the one thing you regret?" And I said, "In your life," and I said, "The one thing I regret, and the only thing I regret, is that I spent so much energy on worrying about food and my weight and what I was going to eat." I mean, it was just, I hated going to the grocery store, Nicole, because it just meant calories and food, food and gaining weight. And oh my gosh, we all have suffered so much. But I love the name of your company and your website. It's Mindful Food and Motion. That's just a great name. How did you come up with this?
Well, I've been a dietitian for a long time, 20 some years, and this is my private practice that I came up with actually while I was in yoga teacher training.
Oh,
And I had planned to have a little bit more yoga involved, but it's really just been in the food and eating piece. Although I am missing going to yoga classes myself. But anyway, I got really into mindful eating initially through a mindfulness practice that I had, a meditation practice. And I thought it was really in line with my thoughts about food and eating and my experience as a dietitian. Um, and then I found intuitive eating, which is a little bit different from mindful eating. And intuitive eating is a non-diet approach to food and eating that helps people learn to sort of tune into their own cues of hunger and fullness and satisfaction. It's something that's been around for a while and is really a useful way, a useful approach to help people who are somewhere on that disordered eating spectrum, which I think we're all somewhere on that spectrum, right?
I mean, and so that whole intuitive eating, I mean, I'm so fascinated by that because I guess I'm not quite catching that yet.
Mhm.
Is that like giving yourself permission to eat what maybe you shouldn't be eating because you're going to gain weight or you're going to whatever?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that idea of what you shouldn't be eating, because we have all these ideas of shoulds and
Yeah.
shouldn't, and a lot of it is related to what will this bite of food do to my weight? Will this
Yes.
cause me to gain weight or lose weight? And of course, we know that no one bite of food or one meal is going to make a difference.
Right.
But yes, so intuitive eating, there's a lot of research about this, and there's a book too which is in its fourth edition, and I would encourage people to seek that out and take a look at it. But basically it is that ability to give yourself unconditional permission to eat, right? So that we are feeding our bodies, and also that ability to tune into our body's cues of hunger and fullness, and what we want to be eating. And it's not about eat what you want whenever you want. But it's that ability to tune into what our cues are saying, which have gotten cut off for a lot of people. When you're following diets for so
Right.
long, it's like, oh, my watch says I don't have any more calories left, so I can't eat anymore. So you sit there and don't eat, but it's really ridiculous. So it's being able to take care of these precious sweet bodies that we have that are really really good at knowing what they need. They just want to maintain same state homeostasis. They just want to stay the same. So yeah, unconditional permission to eat, relying on physical cues, our body's cues of hunger and fullness, and then eating for more of those reasons instead of eating only for emotional reasons or mostly for emotional reasons. I think emotional eating is something that is absolutely normal and we do from time to time, but there are instances where people are eating for emotional reasons that can cause distress. um,
Well, the
so
whole comfort thing.
yeah, comfort,
The
right?
whole comfort food. Oh my gosh, that drives me crazy, but it's so true.
Oh
I
yeah.
grew up, I grew up in Kansas and we had fried chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans on every Sunday. I love, I love fried chicken, but I never fix it and I cook all the time. And I never get it because it's just, it's like a big no, no, no. But, all right, I was just thinking too, isn't there a lot to this belief system too? I mean, do you work on that? Like you believe that fried chicken's gonna, like
Yeah, yeah,
you're gonna gain 10 pounds off of 2 pieces of fried chicken. And yet you basically know you're not, but you have this belief system that I think is so hard to
yeah.
change, isn't it? I mean, you work on that whole belief.
Mhm. All the rules that we catch over all the different diets that we're doing, we start collecting all these rules and all these shoulds and all these shouldn'ts, and there's so much messaging out there. A lot of fear mongering, I would say too, that certain foods will either be your savior or your demise, right?
Right.
And that we just know that that's not the case. That people can thrive on a really wide variety of foods and overall dietary intakes. So, but these ideas, nutrition science is a really relatively new science,
It
and
is.
oh yeah, like if you look at how long, I mean, people have been eating as long as there have been people, right?
Right.
The idea of nutrition science is a lot newer, and so we just don't know everything, and there's all these different ideas, and it's really hard to study nutrition in the body because how do you tease it all out? We look at population studies, we do individual studies, but it's difficult work to do. And so there's these ideas out there that certain, well, like, do you eat eggs or do you not eat eggs, right? Is it
Right.
butter or margarine? I mean,
Exactly.
it changes over time.
Right.
And the problem is when we start hearing, oh, we're supposed to cut out this food, like, sugar, of course, being like the prime evil that's so demonized. Sugar is like a big one. And then, okay, and then you hear, oh, you got to cut out dairy, and then you got to cut out gluten, and you got to cut out nightshades, and you got to cut out, fruit, and you got to, and
No.
you're left with really nothing. And that is turning into something we call it orthorexia, where there's this unhealthy obsession with healthy eating.
Oh
It's
my
it's
gosh. That's
yeah, it's
incredible. That
Mhm.
is so that is just incredible. It's
Yeah.
funny because my dad, I grew up in this little town in Kansas, and my dad was delivered bread. And so, and maybe I told you this, Nicole, when we had our we talked
Yeah,
before.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
But anyway, so I was always a little, I didn't eat a lot of food, and my dad would get very upset with me. And at the dinner table, he'd say to me, I don't care if you don't eat anything on your plate. You eat your bread. It's the healthiest thing for you. So I ate my bread, and I, to this day, would love, I'd rather have a piece of bread than dessert or sugar or candy or chocolate or anything. But I really cut it out. And I did not eat bread for like, oh, I bet it's been 40 years, 30 years. And I got a bread machine right before Christmas. And I thought, my good friend said, this is your downfall. This is going to be horrible for you. Blah, blah. I started eating some bread, and of course I limit it. I don't eat a ton, but oh my gosh, it tastes so good. And guess what? I haven't gained any weight from it. And I had this horror in my head of that bread machine and eating bread, and I'm going to gain 10 pounds and I can't get it. So it's back to that whole belief system. I believe that, but it didn't happen. And it's changing that whole belief system. I can have some bread if I
I'm
want.
so happy for you. And went right out of the bread machine when it's
I
warm
know.
and yum. Oh, that's so awesome. Yes. And when you weren't eating bread, when we restrict things, there we want them more, right?
I know.
This
I
like
know. Well, I'll tell you,
magical.
yeah, but I'll tell you what my fear was, that I was afraid I would start eating and I wouldn't be able to stop. You know how you crave that, but that's not the case. I'm fine. I can't, I can do it. Now, I did notice on your website, and I can't wait to ask you this, but you're talking about the different foods that you can have and that you eat, and you do have a garden, right? You grow
Oh
things.
yeah. Yes.
Oh,
I love gardening. I used to have chickens too. And
oh my
yeah.
gosh,
Mhm.
that's fabulous. Well, you did say on there potato chips. The
Oh
good
yeah.
ones? Now, how can potato chips, how can there be any good one? I love potato chips, but I never, ever, ever buy them. I mean, but what are good ones?
I really like the salt and vinegar ones.
Oh, the salt and vinegar ones. Okay. Oh, so you mean the good ones, not health wise, but just taste wise.
Oh, taste wise, yeah, that's my preference is for that
Okay.
one. I
Okay.
don't care for like the Pringles or those.
But a potato chip isn't really healthy, is it?
So I eat a variety of foods, and I can eat some potato chips in my day, in my week, and it is not going to cause me harm. It's not. It's just yeah, to think that one food is going to do
Yeah.
that. But that fear, like you said, like that fear of, if I start eating bread, I'm never going to stop and it's all I'm going to eat, and I'm just going to like,
Yeah.
that fear is real. And the thing is when we restrict foods, we do kind of want them, and when we do allow them, sometimes we do have more because it's been restricted for so long.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
I think about it like, if you've been underwater and you're holding your breath, and then you come up for air, you don't take just a little sip of air, like,
Yeah.
you're like, right?
Yeah.
And so part of, being able to have an easy, peaceful relationship with food is to work through those foods that you don't allow, and to bring them in, and that we do it thoughtfully, right?
Yeah.
To bring them back in again, and we sort of, there's this disenchantment process that comes where it's like the food becomes no big deal. You can say yes or no, like it's no big deal. So that's part of the process.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I have this good friend of mine. She's 73, and I just talked to her a couple days ago. I was telling her about you, but I said, I've really become, at peace with my weight and with food, because food was a really big thing. And I said, I'm just not. I'm just not letting it, control my life anymore. And she says, oh, that must be such a good feeling, because of course she's not doing that. And she said, that has to make you. That has to be so liberating. And I said, you know what? It is.
Yes, that word, liberating. It's
Yes.
freeing. Yes.
But
Yeah.
did I have to wait till 80 to do that? I mean, I should have known you years before.
That's the yes. And I see people of all different ages, and I'm just so happy for the young ones that are coming. And I'm like, I'm so
Yes.
glad that you're addressing this now. And the word is getting out there a little bit more.
Good.
Um,
Well, here's another question. Okay, first of all, I know this is getting personal, but have you ever had a weight problem or a weight issue?
I
You
have
probably haven't. You don't look like
I
it.
have not, and my weight has been amazingly stable throughout my life. I mean, you have kids, and that does wacky things, but then
Yeah.
it has been remarkably stable. And I am very fortunate. I think a lot of it is genetics, but also I have to say a lot of it is that I was always sort of allowed to do what I wanted to do with food because I was thin. And I think it's really important to recognize the privilege that we have as thin people, and that we're given the benefit of the doubt, that we've got our shit together, or whatever, like we know
Yeah,
what we're doing.
right.
Um, my 1 year younger sister was always in a larger body than me and was given a little bit different message. And when you're told, especially starting from a young age, and I have to say, it is absolutely so normal for girls and boys, for everybody, right? To, as they're approaching puberty, we tend to gain weight. And that is an absolutely necessary part of doing that. And that's at that age where a lot of times girls particularly are told, oh, maybe you need to watch it, right? And you start getting this message that maybe you can't be trusted with food, or you don't know what you're doing about food. So as a thin person, I was always just let alone. I don't care what you see in my grocery cart. I don't, I can eat something and not feel ashamed or feel like you're judging me because I've been protected with thinness.
Yeah, well, that's
Uh,
interesting though that you went into as a dietitian and studied all this, food and stuff when you were thin. I mean, I can see somebody that maybe had a problem would go in and start doing research and doing all this, but
Oh
that,
yeah, but that oftentimes happens, and a lot of times, dietitians have experiences of having eating disorders, or a significant weight loss or something like that. And I think when I learned about this, it was when I first learned the difference. I was working as a dietitian in a hospital, and I was working with both inpatients and outpatients. And people would come to me, and I'd have to give them a weight loss diet. And I had my white coat and my calculator in my pocket. And, you do a 24-hour recall, and you tell them, oh, here's your, you do some calculations, and here's your diet, and it's all a calorie level. And if they don't follow that, then they're non-compliant. And this whole thing, like, I'm the expert, I can tell you what to do. And when I started actually talking to women and finding out, our eating behaviors are so much more complex than just doing what we're told. I mean, if everybody did what we knew we're supposed to do, we'd all be flossing every day and
yeah,
meditating half an hour and
right.
getting, that's not how it works. There's
Yeah.
so many behaviors and psychology and physiology involved in our food and eating behaviors, and privilege too, access to food, what your knowledge is. And so I started asking people more about what's going on in their lives. And it's a lot of busy moms
Yeah.
who are working. And really, I started learning the difference between psychological hunger and wanting to soothe and wanting to reward and
Yes.
to
That
get some
comfort.
pleasure, comfort,
Yeah.
versus that physiological or biological hunger.
Yeah.
So that's really what got me interested in this. And when I found intuitive eating, I was like, well, this is how I eat, because I've always been sort of a normal eater,
Yeah.
or kind of intuitive, where I trust my body and my body trusts me. And what we know about intuitive eaters is that their weight does tend to stay more stable, right? Which is a
Mhm.
healthier, even a stable higher weight is healthier than going up and down yo-yoing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But when I first was reading about intuitive eating, I thought, oh, I started really getting super conscious about what I was doing. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to ruin this good thing that I have. But really, it is, I mean, I got over that. And I just so believe in it because I know it works. And then I see what happens when that trust in yourself and your autonomy over your plate gets disrupted, and what,
Yeah.
what what we do, and the shame that is
Oh,
involved with eating, when you think that there's some eating discretion, and
yeah.
when you struggle and you think you're all alone, and it's the
Oh, yeah. It's just horrible. And then,
right.
I always say as we age and we're getting older, we look back on our life and you just can see things that are like, you know what? I mean, why? Why? And I mean, I look back on some pictures that when I was younger and I looked pretty damn good. It's like I didn't look fat, but I thought I was fat.
Yeah.
And and I look at those pictures and I think, what a shame that I wasted that good feeling of knowing that I looked good. And I grew up in that era where the hot pants and the go-go boots.
Oh yeah, like Twiggy was big, right?
Yeah,
Like,
well, yeah, but I don't remember relating to her that much. I don't remember really relating and thinking I had to be thin because I saw pictures and stuff. It was just all because of myself, me. I don't know. I don't remember that, but I just know I always felt fat. And I weighed
yeah.
110 when I got married, and I felt like I was so fat. And so, I mean, and I don't know where that really came from, to tell you the truth.
And
Uh,
it definitely is a mindset, right? Because here you can look at it now and you can say, I was fine, right?
yeah,
But we have this idea that, and it's in our mind, and we can actually feel fine sometimes. And then we get a glimpse in the mirror or we try on an outfit and then we
yes,
get bad body movement. And that's where it kind of shows it's like, it's in our mind because your
yeah,
body hasn't changed per se,
right.
right? Like, but we have really bad moments and better
I
moments.
know.
And
I used to say I could look at myself in the mirror without any clothes on, and I didn't get grossed out or anything. I think I looked fine. But the minute I started putting on clothes, and I couldn't, like you say, couldn't wear something, or it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I feel so fat. I stopped using that F word quite a while ago because I think that's such a downer, that fat word.
oh, that's really interesting that you bring that up because in the world of anti-diet, non-diet, and body acceptance and all of that, that word fat is actually really being reclaimed by people as a descriptor, just like thin or tall or short is. That there's really nothing inherently bad about it. It is a descriptor. So it's being reclaimed, and it's
Wow.
interesting. Yeah, the thoughts that we have about about bodies of size or
Right,
larger bodies.
right.
So
Huh. Well, I felt better for some reason when I stopped using it, but I can't wait to ask you this question. So on your website, you talked about this weighing request sheet. I mean, that is so unbelievable. I was just like, oh my gosh, is that ever me?
oh my gosh. Okay, so there. So what that is for people who haven't seen is when you go into the doctor. This is what you're talking about. When you go
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
doctor and you're going to be weighed, right? And there can be so much anxiety. It actually, we know this to be true. Some people actually delay medical care.
Oh, you do? I was just going to say, I have put off doctor's appointments before because I didn't want to weigh and see that number and be overweight.
And
So tell us
that
about this. I mean,
that
we
helps.
gotta talk about that sheet. This is like so real.
Yes. And so what that sheet does is for people who are not feeling comfortable speaking up, because you absolutely have the right to refuse to be weighed. And it really shouldn't be such an issue. And I would love to tell you my personal experience with this. Like I I don't have issues with my weight, right? And I recognize I'm thin and I'm
Right.
lucky for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm privileged for that. But I in solidarity with my clients, and let me tell you that people of all body sizes can have feelings of anxiety about being weighed. It's not just larger people,
Yeah.
right? I
I've heard
think
that.
it's primarily because of the stigma that's placed on that. But
Uh-huh.
so I went into the doctor and the nurse wanted to put me on a scale and I said, no, actually I don't want to be weighed. And she's like, well, it's just part of the rooming process. It's what we do. And I was like, no, you really don't need it. It really doesn't have, I don't even remember. I don't, it might have been an earache or whatever I was there for the doctor for. Like, what does my weight have to do with my earache? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the, the actual, it was a little bit, I'm not a very confrontational person. And I'm having this little confrontation with the nurse standing up for myself to say no, like I don't want to, because it can be so triggering for people, right? And so then she took my blood pressure and it was high. And I don't normally have high blood pressure, but it was that interaction that
Yeah.
got me stressed
Yeah.
out. And
Agitated.
when there is
Yeah.
that stress, yeah, your blood pressure is going to be up. So I asked if I could have it taken again at the end of the appointment, and it was fine. But it can be very distressing.
But this sheet, do you fill it out and then take it to the doctor?
So people can just print that and you take it to the doctor. And there's, I think that they're using weights. They need so many metrics, but there's different metrics they can use. They can use your temperature, they can use your blood pressure, other things that they don't need your weight. unless there's certain circumstances where having that weight is helpful, like if there needs to be certain dosing, which even that, or if there's been a change in your weight. And I think that that's an important thing to recognize, that any unintentional weight changes can be an indication that there's something going on.
Yeah,
And
but you would know that. I mean, you would know that yourself. And,
exactly. So
and
that,
I love that, Nicole. I love on there where it says, get on the scale back. I get on the scale backwards all the time. I don't
awesome.
want to see the number. I just, I'm okay until I see that number. And the minute I see that number, I go crazy.
And
So I've been doing that for quite a while where no, you can weigh me, but I don't want to see it. And I don't want you to tell me.
right. And then invariably people end up seeing it. They put it right there on the
I
chart.
know it. I
Um,
know because
so
they're filling out the whole thing at the desk, and you just happen to look over there, and there it is. And you go
what
like,
is it about
shoot.
that number? Yeah, people get so caught up in that number. And, we are so much more than our weight. And we
I
just get
know.
so caught up with a certain number. And maybe this idea of like the number that, you referenced the weight that you were when you got married. And where is it that we think that we're going to stay the same
I
weight our
know.
entire lives?
I know. Yeah.
It's,
And
it's
I never ever expected to get down to that again, but I just thought it was interesting that I weighed only that and still felt really fat.
right.
Um, well, I think to tell you, Nicole, I think this COVID has helped people. I mean, I know people have been overeating and over drinking and stuff, but I talked to so many women that really have done a lot of inner searching and have really, they're doing more cooking and they're really, discovering things about themselves. So do you feel that way, that maybe the COVID thing has helped women kind of?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved, I would say, because in
Yeah.
the beginning, I was having some clients come back that were a little bit triggered by like the empty shelves and that kind of
Yeah.
fear, and then that being home and not having the normal ways of discharging stress that we do, and having increased stress that can lead to eating food as a way of soothing.
Mhm.
um, and but I do believe what you say too, this that people have been eating at home more
Mhm.
and experimenting with cooking. I think bread making
Oh my
has
gosh, it
the
is.
sourdough thing, like
Yes.
so many people are doing that, and there's so much enjoyment that can go into cooking. And
I know, it's so much fun. I love it doing things like that. I don't like the normal everyday cooking, but yeah, this bread machine has just been so much fun. And I do it for other people, and I don't know. It really has been fun.
there really can be pleasure
Yeah.
with eating.
Yeah.
And yes, and eating, maybe if you have one other person and you can make it a little fancy, maybe,
Right.
or just do some different fun things. But
Right. Right. Well, you are just a delight, and I really want people to go to your website. You want to tell them what it is?
oh, sure, it is mindfulfoodandmotion.com. So, www, whatever.
Yeah, mindful food and motion. And as I said to you, you have a great website. I was just fascinated. I read all the different little things about you and what you were doing in your classes. And you do work with people on a one-on-one, right? Or
That's
classes.
primarily what I do. And then, yeah, there's classes not only on intuitive eating, but there's also I'm doing more with one of the sort of tools that I use in this work is mindfulness practices and self-compassion practices as well,
Oh,
because
okay.
a lot of this that can be helpful to be able to approach this work and to do this work.
Yeah.
But it can be triggering. It can be tough to look at all of this. Like you said, the grief or regret maybe of spending so much time.
Yeah.
And I might have mentioned this the other day when the amount of time that we spend focus on your thigh gap rather than the wage gap. I mean, if you think about the time and the energy that people, particularly women, have spent focusing
Yeah.
on staying small.
Yeah.
We could have been putting all that energy and resources into getting bigger,
Right.
right?
I know it.
More. Yeah.
That's so true. Well,
Wow.
you are a gift. You're a gift to aging but dangerous women all over the world.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad to have found about you. And I am just entering the demographic, which is your target population. And so I'm so happy to do more and get involved with
Yeah.
everything that you're doing because there is so I love your whole concept
Yeah.
and
Well, it's changed a lot. I started it 12 years ago, but it's changed a lot. But it's just been quite a journey, and it's just getting better and better all the time because women are getting better and better all the time. It's fabulous. So, well, thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this Zoom call with me. I really appreciate it, and we will be seeing more of you, I'm sure.
fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye.